about it tomorrow. Have you seen the reports about Markel asking, or not asking, but referring to move on?
I did, and what I also saw was his agent coming out and saying that is not true. And I saw bits and pieces of the article that had the title, and then the content didn't really support, to me, the title. And, you know, speaking with people, I don't put any stock into that. I don't. But as you said, after Thanksgiving, I have paid attention better, and that's my response.
Hey, Brett, the team's undefeated at home. Clear that they feed off the energy of the crowd. Does it worry you at all that the team may be a little too dependent on the energy and the emotional side and suffers from lulls, which allow teams back into games that probably should be put away?
To connect that to the crowd wasn't on my mind.
Okay.
Being reliant, dependent on the crowd to get a win. The lulls are on my mind, and trying to, you know, understand that a little bit more wisely, to study that more. Somebody told me on the way out the door that we're like 5-1 in games determined by 3 points or less. And it seems like, you know, we've been pretty good, you know, getting a lead, and then somewhere, you know, there's that lull, and then we've been really good winning games, closing out games at the end. And so trying to conquer that problem, and, you know, there are different stats that I won't share with you as we study it and learn why, and what offensive sets are we in to produce maybe that lull, you know, the connection of the dots with turnovers, Joel's success at a post when it's static, and in that sort of slow type environment, you know, how's he producing, how can we help him? You start like looking at things, it's not a mystery when you start connecting the dots and learning more information. It's not like I'm coming here lost, like I don't know why, I do know why. And it's stuff that I don't want to get into too much coach speak with you now, but we're aware of it, you know, we're paying attention. I'm thrilled to have, you know, Jimmy in that mix that I think can be used and help us get out of those types of lulls. I think that we, with that starting group that's doing quite well, we're the least used lineup in the league at 55 minutes, and like Indiana's pace is most used lineups at 280 or something like that, but the numbers are good. Like so far it's looking good. It just needs to be grown, and it especially needs to be grown in that situation that you're talking about.
What level is Ben playing at right now? Do you think Ben's kind of taken it up a notch the last week and a half or so?
But not in the way that I think you all might. I've challenged him to lead this team to be a point guard. A point guard is the most difficult position, in my opinion, to play in the NBA. And reading Joel when he needs the ball, time and score, situations, in the bonus. We've had 4 trips up the floor, we're just jacking threes. You know, it's a point guard. You feel that. And me coaching him in that environment, offensively and defensively as a point guard and connecting the dots now that Jimmy has come into the mix, you know, you really embracing that role, I think he's been excellent. I see the greatest area of improvement in that mentality, in that leadership, in the acceptance of that role. That's where I see it, that's where I feel it, that's where we need him the most. Now, we can go over to like his free throws or, you know, deep catches and dunks and, you know, being big, 6'10", and that's all true too. But I feel it the most as a point guard. I think he's moving along at a rate that is incredibly encouraging, because I think it's so necessary, especially after the addition of Jimmy Butler.
Is that conversation important for you to have with Ben after?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I have it with him like I'm having it with you now.
When you got Butler, you said, hey, we're
Yeah.
still going to need you to be.
Absolutely. I think this is his greatest gift to the team, his greatest responsibility, and the thing that he actually can do. When I say the easiest, it's not my this is, you know, simple. It's going to be the thing that is, here it is, like run the team, push the ball, pass the ball, feel the game, sense the score, feel Joel, understand bonus, all those things. And it's not like I'm saying go and have 30, right? I'm saying like run this thing. And I think he's been great. And I think he's been great because there are examples of it, like, okay, there's improvement, there's growth. But what I really feel like is great is his willingness to sacrifice, to do this. It can come so naturally. That in defense. Like, you know, when he puts his foot down, he really wants to guard, he can. It's not like I'm saying go out and, like I say, make 30. Or, you know, JJ's role is a little bit different. He got to make shots. Ben can impact the game in ways that just come so naturally because of his athletic gifts, especially.
Coach, back to Markel real quick. Has he or his camp expressed an issue with his wrist?
I want to say this one more time. I feel like I have said everything. And after he gets his treatment, his final assessment, everybody here knows, I'll give you everything I got. I have no more to give. And so I just really don't want to talk much more about that, respectfully.
Can we go back to Ben for a second?
Sure you can.
You've been really insistent in the last couple of weeks that he's a point guard. The pick and roll is not a huge part of your offense. Is it fair to say that's not a strength of his as a point guard? And adding on to that, does Jimmy Butler give you an option now as someone to be the ball handler on the pick and roll?
So there's a lot in that. Let's go to Ben, and let's go to us. We do not run many pick and rolls in our structure. I think that we can run more, but I still, like Golden State, I think is with us as the least frequent pick and roll teams. They're pretty good. And I actually think they get some good pick and roll players. At the moment, I don't do it because I think Ben can do a lot of other things. I don't consider it at the moment to be an extreme strength. I do feel like I have to learn more and grow him more in that environment. And so somewhere there's this toggle of, well, I think we do okay as it is. I'm not sure right now it's a strength of his. People go under, and there's nobody to screen. And so like you rend it into a 17-foot, 16-foot jump shot. You know, you can repick and maybe get him going downhill and play that cat and mouse game too. But as it sits, it's an area I hope to grow him more in. I think his gifts are better placed in other areas. That's Ben Simmons.
Coach, I'm sorry.
I got more to answer here. You asked about Jimmy Butler. Yes, I do. I think that putting him in something as simple as, and we're growing this as part of our crunch time look, just looping him up to the top, throwing it over, letting him and Joel play pick and roll interests me. Giving Jimmy Butler the ball and putting JJ in that pick and roll and doing some of the things on the baseline interests me. I am going to learn more as time unfolds, but I expect to put him in those environments with different people, and I'm excited to see what that produces, especially with JJ as a screener and him the ball carrier.
Hey Brent, since coaches don't really know players until they coach them, is there something about Jimmy that you've learned that you didn't know about before?
I mean, he's come in very willing to fit in. You know, it's clear like he's of the mindset that I'm going to come in and be absorbed in a pretty established culture, be absorbed in a pretty established defensive sort of scheme and offensive scheme, and kind of, you know, figure stuff out instead of like imposing himself immediately in our program. I respect that because his heart and the intent is humble. I feel like where it's going to end up isn't entirely that. Like he's going to want the ball, you know, when it matters. And sometimes I put him in situations where he has the ball when it matters. And I think it's just organic growth. It's the evolution of him fitting in. And I think that's the thing, as much as anything that stood out, the human side of his integration. It's obviously calculated, it's thoughtful, and I respect it.
Coach, in terms of tonight, what's the message about guarding against potential letdown against a 2-win team. Do you feel that at this point in your team's development that you even have to relay a message like that?
I mean, as coaches, as the coach, you always are terrified it's too dramatic. You're always aware of letdowns. After Thanksgiving, you know, you come back, you're proud of your home court. You know, we've won a bunch in a row here at home. I think it always gets back to, do you guard? Do you play defense? And tonight it's going to be, we need to improve defensive rebounding. I thought we were poor the last time that we played. They had 20. That's, you know, way too many, by almost double. I think that Tristan and that group does a hell of a job offensive rebounding. So my sort of heart, my head goes straight to, if we guard, I think we can win. And if we rebound as a part of that mentality, we can win. And it's completely pointed toward defense with a subplot of, you better make your hits and you better defensive rebound.
You know, John, the other day, Brett, the word royalty came up. You addressed it, you said something to the effect of check back at the third of the season, or something. You said, I think we can be royalty, but we're not there. Well, I know it's a vague term, but can you kind of what would you describe as royalty? I mean, and you were
No, I can do it. I
here.
can do it easy. When you have a gut feel that as you play other elite teams, Toronto said, and Milwaukee said, and I still think the Celtics, despite, you know, what's going on in Boston, like, we all experience those lulls. He's a hell of a coach. They're a hell of a team. They'll be back. When you play those teams and you feel those teams, when I feel like we're in a rhythm to me coaching and subbing and play calling, and we have a sting to our defense, like we really have that disposition outside of just Joel Embiid and the group, that whoever's on the floor with Joel, when he's off the floor, how's our defense then? And I feel like we're organizing, there's a rhythm beat to how we're doing it, and we got that sting. I can look at you and say, yep, here we are, we're amongst royalty. And right now, there are some lulls. Right now, there shouldn't be any continuity, consistency, perfect flow to what we're doing. And I think that when we can get to that stage that I just expressed, I'll feel truthful telling you I think we're amongst royalty. And right now, we just aren't. It's not anybody's fault. Just give us time. Give us time, because I know that we can be.
Coach, if we can go back to the development of the guard, because there's the point guard in this league. With you being a teacher, could you describe the learning curve one must have in order to be successful in the point guard position, the transition?
And it's almost, where do I begin? Because I think that, as I told Ben, being a point guard isn't just dribbling the ball up the court fast. It's never ending. I'm the son of a coach. I was a point guard my whole life. I played as Rick Pitino's starting point guard for 3 out of my 4 years in college. And I see the game and coach the game that way. And it's a mentality, it's a gut feel, it's an intellect, it's as much of a psychological position as it is a skill. You own the gym. You have to feel the gym. You have to feel the clock, your teammates, Joel Embiid, time score. And so this growth of Ben as a point guard and turnovers and all that's an evolving thing, because you don't just click your heels and make him a point guard, because he's got some of the skills that I think he can be incredible. I really think he can be this unicorn that the league hasn't seen for a long time with his height and skill package. But he's been a four-man his whole life. And so to think like he's just going to come in and say, okay, cool, I'm a point guard, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Most coaches would say point guards are born. And there's a little bit of truth to that. But I think his gifts and his willingness and his ability to share and care are all there for me. And somewhere out there, you know, that's my wish, that's my job, that's what I see, that's my vision for him. When we drafted him, I thought, like, I think he can be a point guard. I don't believe many thought that. I did, and I still do. And it doesn't make him, well, he can't play a mobile 4. I like him at a 5 sometimes. But I think, like, this is where I see it. This is where I'm trying to grow it. And those things come to my mind.
Sorry to ask about him, keep asking about him, but you mentioned like the sacrifice talk with him, with Ben. I mean, is that a hard sell for him? Do you even have to sell it?
No. I think like it's all on the table. Like it'd be, you would all be kind of naive to think like, oh, no problem, I got it. Like, you know, there's obviously sacrifices and what's it really mean, and you can't articulate it perfectly. Well, this is what you're going to have to give up. You used to do this. You're not going to do this anymore because we have Jimmy Butler and JJ needs shots and there's Joe. You can't sort of go through. In my head, you know, I can articulate it, I think, quite well, but to convey it, it's too broad. You know, so like it's this teammate, it's this willingness, it's a paradigm shift. You know how I see the world now going forward, and I think he's fantastic. And I think he's going to be a killer. I think he really, really can connect the dots to all of this without sacrificing, you know, entirely the things that he also can bring to the table. And I just think that he's on track, and that, you know, going backwards is the area that I see the greatest improvement in since we've had Jimmy.
And I can get back to that
Last one, guys.
conversation if I can.
Sure.
When, and we all know what happened, but when you see where the Cavs were and where they are now, how quickly it happened, because it hit home that if you have an opportunity to do royalty, you have to do it, and it might not necessarily last forever, that window.
Absolutely, no doubt. And you know, this discussion that I have all the time with Elton, and it is an incredibly fruitful, it's an incredibly sort of natural conversation I can have with one of my former players, the current general manager, however many years, I think 18 years in the NBA, where in the ownership group we talk about like timelines. What's the timeline of Ben? What's the timeline of Joe? And so on and so forth. It's as much now as it is anything. And so, how, you know, and it's even exacerbated, expedited more when you bring in Jimmy Butler. And so, yes, to your point, and I think it is the mindset of all of us that we want to grow, coach, think. Like that's the standard. That's our litmus test. You know, you don't just do that, but everything we think about is driven through, is that a championship standard? Fortunately, I've lived it 4 times. And so it is not a mystery to me of what that looks like. And I think that mentality is now draped over our organization, and it needs to be, it has to be what we think. This is how we see the world nowadays because of the players that we currently have. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you.